it was a treat, in every way. I mean, I just felt like it was a gift every day.
There is a certain silence that follows a long life in Hollywood, the kind built not from secrecy, but from dignity. At 81, Sam Elliott sits as one of the last remaining guardians of an era defined by restraint, loyalty, and a slow-burning intensity that only deepened with age. For decades, audiences saw the mustache, the voice, the cowboy myth, but behind that image lived a man shaped by the women who steadied him, challenged him, surprised him, and taught him who he was when the cameras stopped rolling. Across interviews in Variety, Esquire, NPR, and countless festival panels, Elliott rarely spoke in absolutes. Yet when he did, his admiration revealed itself, not as tabloid romance, but as respect, gratitude, and memory. And among those memories lies one story, hidden in Chapter 4, that shaped him far more than he ever publicly admitted. You won't want to miss it. Number 1. Katharine Ross. Long before Sam Elliott became the silver-haired emblem of American masculinity, he was a young actor still struggling to find his place in Hollywood. And then came Katharine Ross, already an icon from The Graduate and Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid. Elliott first saw her on that legendary Western set in 1969. A small, quiet part for him, a star-making moment for her. He later admitted in interviews that he admired her from a distance, convinced he was not in her league. A confession he repeated decades later in AARP magazine with a shy humility rarely seen in leading men. It would be many years before they spoke, but when destiny finally aligned on the set of The Legacy in 1978, Elliott said it felt like a circle completing itself. In numerous press appearances, NPR, the New York Times, and film festivals from Santa Barbara to Telluride, he described Ross not as the love of his life, but the one who steadied the ground under my boots. Hollywood marriages were famous for their volatility, but theirs was a quiet rebellion. No scandals, no theatrics, just constancy. Ross, known for her delicacy on screen and her steel off it, pushed Elliott to trust himself when he doubted his own trajectory. She read scripts with him, challenged lazy choices, and reminded him that slow careers are sometimes the strongest ones. He once admitted that without her discipline, he might never have survived the lean years between roles. Their marriage, lasting more than 4 decades, remains one of the few enduring love stories in Hollywood's shifting sands. Elliott openly credited her for grounding his sense of purpose, saying, "Nothing I am makes sense without her." And for a man known for silence, that was perhaps the greatest declaration he ever made. Number 2. Cleo Rose Elliott. For all the roles Sam Elliott played, the cowboy, the rancher, the quiet hero, nothing disarmed him more than fatherhood. When Cleo Rose Elliott was born in 1984, Elliott often said in interviews that it was the first time he truly understood vulnerability. In a 2015 NPR conversation, he described holding his daughter for the first time as the moment the world stopped moving, a rare admission from a man who built his career on restraint. Cleo grew up surrounded by artistry, a mother who lived through Hollywood's golden age, and a father whose voice carried the weight of American myth. But Elliott admired her not for her lineage, but for her defiance of it. She pursued music, studying classical vocals, then branching into rock, performing with an intensity that surprised many who expected her to follow her parents into film. In Malibu Times interviews, Elliott spoke proudly about how she took her own trail, echoing his own belief that no artist should walk another person's path. Their relationship, like many between strong-willed parents and creative children, was shaped by both closeness and growth. Elliott often said that Cleo made him a better listener, something he reiterated during red carpet events and press junkets for A Star Is Born. He admired her for her honesty, her independence, and her refusal to conform to Hollywood's expectations. When Cleo accompanied her parents to award ceremonies in later years, Elliott frequently placed a protective hand on her back, a small gesture, but one that spoke volumes about their bond. In several interviews, he credited her with teaching him softness, reminding him that even the strongest men must learn to bend, to apologize, and to evolve. Cleo wasn't just his daughter. She was the mirror that revealed who he was when the cameras weren't rolling. Number 3. Lady Gaga. By the time A Star Is Born began production in 2017, Sam Elliott had nothing left to prove. His legacy was already chiseled into Hollywood's long memory, yet he often said the film gave him a third act, and at the center of that revival was a woman he never expected to admire as deeply as he did, Lady Gaga. Though known to the world as a global pop icon, to Elliott she became something entirely different. An artist of unusual discipline, generosity, and emotional intelligence. During interviews with Variety, Esquire, and Entertainment Tonight, Elliott repeatedly praised Gaga's work ethic, saying she arrived on set with zero ego and total commitment. He admired how she stripped away her superstar armor to reveal a raw, vulnerable performer. One, he said, reminded him of why he fell in love with acting in the first place. For a man forged in the traditions of old Hollywood, Gaga's devotion to craft felt both surprising and familiar. Their scenes together carried a tension that had little to do with dialogue and everything to do with presence. Elliott later confessed that watching her work with Bradley Cooper lit a fire in him, pushing him to dig deeper, listen harder, and rediscover the emotional truth beneath every line. After the film's release, Gaga publicly thanked Elliott in multiple press events, calling him a gentleman, a master, and a quiet storm of talent. These words moved him more than he admitted. In one NPR interview, Elliott said simply, "She's the real deal." And coming from him, there was no higher praise. Lady Gaga reminded Sam Elliott that art, true art, is ageless. And in that reminder, she gave him something priceless, the feeling of beginning again. Number 4. Cher. When Sam Elliott joined the cast of Mask in 1985, he walked onto the set expecting a standard Hollywood production. Instead, he found Cher, already a legend, already a force, standing in the center of the room like a storm that refused to move. Elliott had admired her work from afar, but nothing prepared him for the woman he met in person. Fierce, unfiltered, deeply intuitive, and astonishingly protective of the people she loved. It was a quality he respected from the first day. During the film's press tour, Elliott admitted that Cher's strength surprised him. In Rolling Stone and Los Angeles Times interviews, he spoke about how she fought for everyone, especially when studio executives clashed with director Peter Bogdanovich. Elliott admired that loyalty. He understood it, because he lived by similar principles, though he expressed them quietly rather than loudly. Cher expressed them like thunder. What Elliott never forgot, and rarely discussed publicly, was how Cher treated him when the cameras stopped. Between takes, she asked about his early career, about the sacrifices he and Katharine Ross were making to raise their young family, about the doubts that still haunted him despite years of work. Elliott later said in a small festival panel that Cher saw straight through people, and for a man known for his reserve, that intensity was both disarming and unforgettable. But the real hidden truth of this chapter, the one he never talked about fully, is how Cher changed his understanding of vulnerability. She encouraged him to take artistic risks, to shed the stoic armor audiences had come to expect. She told him he was capable of far more than Hollywood allowed him to show. Cher didn't just challenge him as an actor. She challenged who he believed he was. And that, Sam Elliott later hinted, stayed with him for decades. Number 5. Lily Tomlin. When Sam Elliott stepped onto the set of Grandma in 2015, He expected a small film with a modest impact. What he did not expect was Lily Tomlin, sharp, wickedly funny, empathetic in ways that cut straight to the bone. Elliott had admired her for decades, calling her one of the greats in a Deadline interview, but working with her revealed a depth that even he hadn't anticipated. Their most memorable scene together, a tense, emotionally explosive conversation between former lovers, became one of Elliott's proudest moments. At Sundance and later in The Hollywood Reporter, he admitted that the rawness of that scene came from Tomlin's ability to listen, to stay present, and to challenge him without ever raising her voice. "She doesn't need volume," Elliott said. "She has truth." It was admiration wrapped in professionalism, but also in something more intimate. Recognition. Tomlin saw in Elliott the sensitivity behind the mustache and gravel voice. He saw in her the emotional intelligence that had defined her work since Nashville and 9 to 5. Between takes, they talked about the changing landscape of Hollywood, about ageism, about the quiet fear actors carry even after decades in the business. Elliott later told Variety that Tomlin made the set feel like a confessional, where honesty mattered more than performance. He admired her fearlessness, her ability to shift from comedy to devastation with a single breath. But what lingered with him long after filming ended was her kindness. She checked on him, asked about his family, offered wisdom without pretense. For a man who spent his life guarding his emotions, Lily Tomlin became the rare colleague who understood the quiet parts of him without needing them explained. In her presence, Sam Elliott rediscovered an artistic truth. Sometimes the softest performers leave the deepest mark. Number 6. Glenn Close. Sam Elliott has worked with many gifted actors, but Glenn Close occupied a rare category in his mind. A performer whose presence demanded nothing yet elevated everything. Their most public collaboration came during the awards season for The Big Lebowski, and later during industry roundtables, where both spoke about longevity, craft, and surviving Hollywood without losing one's moral compass. Elliott frequently referred to Close as a benchmark of excellence, a phrase he used in a saggy conversation when discussing actors he deeply admired. Although they never shared a major film together, Elliott often crossed paths with Close at screenings and guild events. He spoke warmly about her ability to vanish into roles: Fatal Attraction, Albert Nobbs, The Wife. Work he described in a Variety interview as transformative without ever being showy. It was the kind of acting Elliott respected most. Rooted, disciplined, emotionally honest. Close admired him as well. During a 2018 Governor's Award ceremony, she approached Elliott to praise his performance in A Star is Born, telling him he brought a rare masculine vulnerability to the screen. Elliott mentioned that moment later on NPR, saying it humbled him more than she would ever know. Praise from an actress of her stature carried a weight few others could match, but what made Elliott truly admire Close wasn't just her artistry, it was her integrity. He once described her as the kind of actor who works for the right reasons, noting her decades-long advocacy for mental health, her refusal to chase empty fame, and her commitment to the craft even when Hollywood overlooked her brilliance. In Glenn Close, Sam Elliott saw a reflection of the values he held dear: quiet excellence, emotional truth, resilience without bitterness, and a career shaped not by hype, but by heart. She reminded him that greatness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it breathes. As Sam Elliott looks back at 81, these 6 women form more than a list. They are a map of the life he lived. Katharine Ross, the anchor. Cleo, the softening of a rugged heart. Lady Gaga, the unexpected spark. Cher, the thunder that challenged him. Lily Tomlin, the quiet truth-teller. And Glenn Close, the mirror of artistic integrity. Through them, Elliott's journey becomes clearer. shaped not only by roles and scripts, but by the women who touched his spirit in ways fame never could. Their influence carved the man behind the legend, revealing a life measured not in box office numbers, but in gratitude, growth, and connection. Which of these stories moved you the most? Share your thoughts below, because in every great Hollywood legacy, the audience becomes part of the story too.